All right. Hey, everyone. So, I've been watching some videos about subclasses and the divided player community feeling both positive and negative, as well as hearing people's feedback all over Discord. This topic is very complex conversation and not the easiest to talk about because it involves many years of both positive and negative issues with the game that makes player fan base react the way they are right now. I will try to break it down as simple as possible. It's pretty complex, so it can relate not just to the endgame community, but as well as casual peers and solo players. So the first topic I will talk about is excitement. Personally, I probably spent tons of hours wasting golden transmutes and lots of kudos simply experimenting with builds for PvP, solo dungeons, solo arenas, and trials, trifectas, etc. I do a little bit of all. I enjoy it, and so because of this, I'm super stoked to some Frankenstein, some crazy class mix builds. Um, Usually probably spend a ton of hours failing, but also passing my experience to make a good build that's fun for me or for anyone else. However, let's be realistic. Most people will either never do this or just listen to some YouTuber or simply have no clue what to do even. So for those millions, they just want to play the damn game. This is why a lot of times when things are not working in the game, I can relate to these issues very easy in combat, lag spike changes to passes or skills, when most people will never even know that any of these problems, especially like when they change skills unexpectedly week by week, unless someone tells them. Um, and this is, due to hours of test experiment. And like I said, most people will never or are clueless, and I can get it because most just come here to have fun and play. You know, they come out of their job. They don't want to be worried about doing that stuff. Anyway, blah blah blah. With that being said, the hype and excitement is what has a lot of people excited. So here's one: motivation to win or just play. Part of this for any player to return to the game. The motivation has to be cool, not stale, and offer rewards or stuff that makes players excited again. And it has to be good and motivational. What I mean by this is, for example, one, long time ago when the card game it came out, how much motivation did that give? Well, let's be realistic. The card game in ESO failed in many expectations. Now, hear me out. Yes, there are many players I know who love it and say it's one of the best games in the world and they played every day in ESO. But then there are many who hate it, or some, well, most who never played it at all. You would think, why would they never play it at all? Well, here's the problem with that. Most people who play ESO are trying to escape life problems or real world, or simply just want to be exposed to something cool. Even if, let's say, the card game was the best, considered the best in the world. Let's be real. If I want to play a card game, I'll play with my friends in real life or go to Atlantic City, not playing in ESO. And that's how most people felt. They don't play ESO to play a card game. And it doesn't matter how. So it fell to expectations. Um, Now, if you like this game, it's okay. Like, I respect it. Everybody plays their game. They're gonna be honest. Millions and millions of people, it fell for them and did not motivate them to want to come back. The next thing is class identity. And this is so controversial and this is very complex subject that maybe some may understand, but others will still find clueless, especially if you're a casual just playing for fun. A lot of this stuff probably you won't feel because you're like, it's whatever. You just enjoying the game. Um, but I'm gonna talk about a few years ago back when the hybrid era began. For those who remember that, it was one of the worst changes ever to the game. It took years to finally fix, and even to this day, hybrid is still not perfect, with many flaws still. For example, stamina tunes are supposed to be the hardest hit in the game, but if that's the case, ever notice why you don't have 12 stamina tunes in trifectas? With the exception of only updating new class Arcanist. But every other class is outdated in some way, and it's really hard to fix this problem. Yeah, I remember a long time ago, years ago, they tried this, and it just fell miserably. You literally had 12 stamina tunes. It was nonsense. It was ridiculous. Um, and I can remember even one of the guilds where they were like, "Oh, you can play whatever you want." Sure. And then you had like a magica character, a medium armor, which now is normal. Like I said, times are so much better now. But back then, like, your sustain was terrible if you just had pure medium out. And it was so controversial over the years. I mean, you have people fighting back and forth over this because It's changes that did not make sense. With time it got better, but boy was it bad. Um, Next, generic skill lines in old classes. So just hear me out for a moment. And what I mean by generic, just hear me out so you can understand a little bit better. You have the Mages Guild. I'm just gonna give you some examples. You have the Fighters Guild. You have the Nautic skill line. They had the Sidric. These are just some examples of what we call generic skill line. And the reason why is because any class can use these skill lines. So in high-end game with older classes, if you don't have some of these skills lines, your tune is going to be less optimal or mediocre at best for a core. PvP, I know Sidric Order, especially for a Nightblade, is always really good. You know, if you don't have it, you limit yourself. Can you still play? Sure, but you're not going to be as optimal. Um, so the Arcanist is the only class in the game because it's the newest class in the game where you literally do not have to use any generic skill lines. You can literally use all art class skills and passives and still perform optimal in anything PvP, PvE, solo, trials, trifectas, even parsing in a dummy. Um, but with older classes, you can't do this. You know, um, if you do, you're gonna be lackluster at best. Finally, for PvP, it's gonna be fun experimenting, but eventually something's gonna get broken. Hasn't felt yet in ESO. It's gonna be fun experimenting, but eventually you do know it's gonna get a little stale. But that's PvP is always unfortunately they're the sad ones because they always get the last updates of everything. Sometimes they don't even get updates at all. Now I try to balance it out for everyone so everyone could get why this is gonna be either positive or negative effect for them. Solo builds, anyone who does solo builds, that's arenas, solo hard mode, solo dungeons, um, overland. I mean, overland is very scaled, so you don't really need much. You just gotta, with little minor practice, you can do it, or you always find someone. But anyway, for solo builds, it's going to be fun, but the worrisome is the combat. Is it going to be clunky? This is the thing when changes come. Skills getting clunky, lag, because I can tell you this, combat, and I believe Ninja was the one who said it. Combat is probably one of the things that this game is really good at. But here's the thing: when combat and things are lagging and the skills are not hitting, the game is unbearable. Where any long-term gamer literally wants to throw the controller out the window. We all have this feeling. I mean, I haven't spoke to anyone yet, who has played with me who were we're about to do something and the skills just lag. If you're in Overland, you don't probably get affected as much, except for maybe like you get kicked out of the boot or booted from the server. But anyway, getting off topic. So lag because they can tell you this when you are alone in a very dungeon or hard mode. When you're by yourself, you need to be you need to balance yourself in every way. You don't have buffs going for you. You don't have anyone helping you out. So you kind of have to be semi tanky, but you can't be too tanky because you'll like DPS. You gotta self heal yourself, but the same thing, you gotta have also balance your DPS, and you gotta have some DPS. If your DPS is too low, you're gonna take forever. If your DPS is too high, you're gonna miss something out. You're gonna be squishy. It is brutal, and you gotta manipulate different things. Not everyone can do it, but it is fun and worthwhile when you can solo yourself. So, with that being said, you literally have to balance everything yourself. The worst feeling in the world as a solo player is you're 2 hours in a solo hard mode or even just vet dungeon, let's say, and you're at 1%. And because the game decides to boot you with an error message or you die because your skills lag and decide not to work, that is so frustrating. You're 2 hours in. So now you're gonna spend another 2 hours. I mean, and that's what gets people quitting. That's what gets people because no one wants to go through that. And it happens way too often. In conclusion, I will say this. I am super excited because of the chances of many things happening, the experimental, and I do wish the best for it. But it's just a proof of history, and it always repeats itself that things don't come out always the way they say they will. It's like they always put bandages to stuff. And yeah, it sounds like I'm being negative here, but it's the truth. That's why I could relate to people being excited, and I could believe the people who are negative. And then there's just some that are just extreme, controversial conspiracy theories. We'll always have that even in real life. It's whatever. Respect everyone else. But with that being said, I do hope it does get better. I am excited. I'm trying to be as positive as possible because I'm not gonna quit the game regardless. With that being said, if you have any comments or thoughts, feel free to comment below. You know, um, please be respectful because we all could respect our opinions. At the end of the day, these are opinions. We don't know exactly what's gonna happen exactly. I mean, hey, it might be a miracle. Maybe everything's perfect, or maybe it's not. Regardless, we're trying to play the game we enjoy, and I hope you enjoy this. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see everyone later.